off ramp, right? People's imagination right now is being ruled by other people. We are actively participating in the imagination of the person who invented StreamYard. They imagined we would be here, right? And so you got to
Mm,
start living your own imagination. And I think
mm,
that you really do got to get off the internet, right? Like you got to get it off the screen and know almost what the future holds, but what they wrote down before. So they kind of
yeah.
make their own future and they sync it up.
Yeah.
They imagine the future beforehand and then they act it out. And I do believe in this mental process of imagining things beforehand and then acting them out later.
Maybe it's one thing when it's just you having your flow state, but then if you have like 10 other people in the
Oh,
same place and you're having that same kind of flow, now is this like a flow that's even rarer to find and to sync up into?
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you were saying about Captain Kennedy.
So Captain Kennedy, for those who don't know, is Anthony Ross Kennedy. He's a military vet. He's, I think, a mental health professional in some regards. I'm not exactly sure of his credentials, but he's also a content creator. He's an artist, and he's trying to get truth out there. And um, I'm mostly like I have this weird. I know TikTok is the next big thing, right, or whatever it is. Or right
Mm,
now, we're like, if you want to live stream, it's better to do it on TikTok. That's my personal belief, but it's hard to get to that point. And I just doing my cringe content this week, and I stumble upon Sir Anthony Ross Kennedy's live stream, and he has 140 plus people in there watching
holy
him live.
smokes.
Holy yeah, I
Holy
was like,
smokes.
no, yeah, because I watch a lot of streamers like Chalkbody. Like I think these guys have big numbers because it's on YouTube, and then sometimes I dismiss TikTok and these other um, social media apps and the followings that those can create for people. But I was just astounded to see Anthony Ross Kennedy and his voice grow. Like his message is getting out there far quicker than mine is, or like not that I have a message, but um, I was happy to see that and almost flabbergasted to some extent. And I left a little comment in the chat. I don't know if you saw me, but I just said, "Hey man, I had a great time on your podcast," and just that little comment lit up the chat, helped my algorithm, and some people watch that podcast today. And my point with this is, and it kind of connects to our last conversation about like when you just create content and you just sometimes people think they don't have an audience, but you just haven't found your audience. And to see him finding his
Mm,
audience at a really fast rate was really cool today, and it surprised the hell out of me because not that I don't think he has that ability, to be a live streamer, quote unquote. But to have 150 or 40 people talk to you, it's not easy.
yeah, that brings up a couple things. The first thought is like to even have like 100 people in a room watching you do something, like when I teach classes, I might have 20 people. Then I'm
Mhm.
thinking 100 people is a lot. And then when I performed for this one company, we would do big arenas and there maybe be 30,000, 20,000 people.
Wow.
But now I'm thinking, could you imagine having 100,000 people surrounding you in like this amphitheater? It's like I can't even comprehend that, and it's all through this screen. So there's something about the size of the audience, but it's so intimate that like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like an illusion. You don't really feel the
Mm,
pressure like I think you would on stage. I've given presentations in school and stuff, and I would get nervous, but not like some other people. And uh, but it didn't matter if there was only 3 people in the class or 15. I still felt that pressure, and the more I felt more pressure. But when I go on live streams, and I do live streams, for my own, when I have smaller numbers, this is the interesting thing. I feel more pressure with smaller numbers on my own channel. When I see other people and I go on Chalk Body Outline and they have higher numbers, uh, yes, it is an interesting thing. It does get to you on a lot
mm,
of levels, the live streaming thing, because you see an immediate result of whether you're interesting or not, right?
right,
And so
right.
you can see numbers go up, you can see numbers go down, you can see chat respond to you negatively. So it is, and when there's a lot of people responding negatively, that impacts your cognitive focus and your even on trust in what you're saying sometimes. And so, but when it's only a couple people, it can still be just as loud. But I think that's kind of the secret is whether it's 10 or 100 people, it's kind of the same thing in my experience, but
Mm,
just the volumes turned up, maybe perhaps a lot louder. but you're listening or playing the same game or playing the same song.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think, last bit on Captain Kennedy, that when you see him on Instagram, his engagement, I don't even know how many followers, not that followers matter, but like in
Slow.
relation to TikTok, he doesn't have that same number. So it
Mhm.
makes me think about different platforms. And you're saying you put your content on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and there's like friction. So like you're trying to reduce friction. You're trying to get as many people to interact with your content through all these different platforms. And like if you have your digital voodoo doll that's like kind of dancing around all these platforms, you have a wider reach. And I'm just curious, like why TikTok is interested in what he has to say much more than, because this is the last thing. I just started doing the YouTube and I started to put out these shorts, and none of the shorts were getting any traction. Last
Mhm.
night I put in one at 12 o'clock at night, and it's just a push-up challenge.
I saw that.
And
Yeah.
it shows me that within the first half an hour, I had almost 700 views,
Wow.
and then it stops. It stops.
Yes.
It cuts it. So it's like, okay, what's that whole story? Like,
Uh,
I could
I,
get, you know what I mean?
I think I have a little bit of an answer. So my experience posting with reels, I've had really successful reels. I've done some viral trendy thing, not like famous viral, but like, 33,000 plays, 20,000 plays on reels. And kind of as I got more
Mm,
into it, some of the things I read was that the algorithms reinforce posting. So it's like hitting a jackpot. So when you post reels consistently, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram will eventually just say, boom, you win. Right. Like, so here they'll just force it through. So
I
it's a
see.
way, it's like that's why reels and social media is akin to gambling, because you post, you create content, and you're hoping for that viral hit, right?
Right,
And then
right.
sometimes they'll just give it to you. And I noticed that when I used to post 3 or 4 reels every day. That was my
Okay.
thing. And then I noticed through that consistency, I was like, once or twice a week, I get above 1,000, 2,000, then 15,000, then 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the reels are, yeah. So I think it's a lot of it is, and then when your content that stopped at 700, I've noticed when they put the brakes on my reels or my posts, where like all of a sudden the sharing just drops, the algorithm stops it dead in its track. And I think that's
Right.
another way where the coders are designing you to, oh, you got to post another one, right? So they're trying to encourage you. If they just
Yeah.
let you just keep running away with the posts, that would be interesting. To your other point about posting shorts and things of that nature, I think I forgot. Maybe I had another point, but do you have anything else to that or to what I said?
Ooh. Not that I can recall.
But in regard to like posting shorts and the TikTok algorithm and what you were kind of referencing before, like why is somebody's views a lot more on TikTok and why is their engagement higher on TikTok and lower on Instagram? My
Right.
experience with TikTok, it's filled with bots, and the
Okay.
algorithm perversely incentivizes you to stay on it and your use more. So I have an account, right, that I use for my cringe, and I have like almost 300 followers. I have one post, right? So that to me shows that a lot of people who do have high follower accounts, if they're anything like me, who just follows accounts and I don't post, it's real. And if you do post, you're going to get to 1,000 pretty quick followers,
Mm.
and then that entitles you to live streaming. And then TikTok's gearing itself, I think, more towards live streaming and active audience engagement and the things, because there's a point to creating, but they want the watcher and the creator to be in a constant interaction or a dance. So I
Mm.
think that's the angle TikTok's going for. So the reason Anthony Kennedy, to answer your question or maybe your statement, is why does he have higher engagement? Because the algorithm in TikTok is reinforcing more and more people. They're better at keeping people on the app, on the screen, than Instagram is or YouTube. YouTube's pretty good, but I think TikTok and the way they've developed their algorithm keeps people on longer and engaged in more ways.
I see. I see. I feel like I'm slowly being won over to try and create a TikTok, but not yet.
Uh, I have one, but
Mm-hmm.
it's for cringe. Like, and I have another one too to post. I tried because I knew this was true that if you post on TikTok, you're gonna grow faster. But I have a lot of I have problems with the app, right? I have problems with it's whether it's a spy app. I don't want it on my phone all week. I only want
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
Saturday, Sunday. I don't want to be stuck on it posting things. I do enough on Instagram, and that's kind of my thing with it is even though I know it might be better for me long term as far as content creation goes, I think it's worse for me short term, like mental health or whatever. Excuse me,
Totally. Yeah,
whatever. Like
totally.
it's just a drain on like when I have TikTok Saturday and Sunday and I'm looking at all this content
Yeah.
and it can be draining. I think it really is. I think staring at a screen really does suck out your energy personally. But if you do it for
Oh,
too
yeah.
long, yeah, I get drained out for sure. But what are
Yeah.
your thoughts? So you don't have a TikTok?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Good for
Because the
you.
same thing is I'm like concerned about. I mean, this is the thing I've been mulling over that privacy is, we think we have privacy, but my phone, agreed to all these things where Instagram is collecting my data, YouTube, everything. My microphone is probably constantly listening to me, so there is no more privacy.
That's right.
And if someone really wants to know something, they're going to find out. So but there's at least I can be somewhat active in saying, well, no, I'm not going to do this.
Mhm.
And I think there's just something about that that feels it's too frictionless and it could sweep me away.
I like that. And one thing, what can you just repeat that? So you're talking about privacy issues, and I think that is one of the main things too people have been talking about. And one of the other things I'd like to tag onto that is free choice, right? So we like to believe we're in
Mm-hmm.
control of all of our decisions, but when you do, and this is the point connecting to privacy, when you do allow a lot of companies, social media apps into your personal life to look at your data and all these other things, what then they end up doing is constructing paths or avenues for you to follow online. And then it like your freedom
Right.
and your free will becomes diluted. You think you're on a screen or on a page because that's what you chose, but you've
Totally.
slowly been nudged in these little arenas. So privacy is
Yeah, yeah.
a big concern for me too, but also maintaining my own self control and like understanding that I'm in control of my life and I don't want to be guided into limited hangouts or whatever
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
jargon people might use to be nudged or pushed. There's a lot of different things people say, but
That's the
um,
word. That word nudge is like so on point, right? There's a book about it. Like that's what exactly what's happening. It's incremental. It's like, a centimeter here, and then a year later, you're like a mile away from something you even thought you were not even looking at.
absolutely. And that's because they have so much access to your private data. So your free choice, your free will is connected to your private thoughts and your private words and the things you kind of say and do in your private time. And they're not just recording the audio. I think they're recording visual and it's just nonstop. I think it's just pure. They hit record as soon as you buy your phone.
Yeah, totally. All right. So I thought I would start off with some footage. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it pretty clearly.
Okay, cool. And then maybe that's better, right? Because you can see a little bit more of the screen.
Sure.
Oh,
I like that.
okay. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna hit play and then oh, it's a little loud. Sorry. Sorry.
Fascinating. Oh, I get it. At first, I was confused.
So go back to
Wow.
okay. Sorry, was that super loud when it played in?
Um, I might have. I mean, if they're listening later, they'll just adjust. It was fine. Maybe a little loud.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Okay,
really
okay.
can't tell.
Um, so yeah, that's the first clip. Just a quick backstory on that is that's my wife when and that's the dance company we first met at. And the reason why I showed this was because years later, now that I'm looking at all of this, not conspiracy, but like the occult. And there's so many things that we haven't seen that I'm seeing now. And I realized that while I was in this company, there was a lot of symbolism and imagery and things that I was acting out in as a performer that I wasn't aware of. That now looking back, I'm like, is that true? You know, and so when I watch this, I think of that's the hangman in the tarot
That's what I
card.
was
Not that I
thinking.
know. All right, there we go. Boom.
And
So,
I wasn't to be honest about my thought was I knew the word hangman. I wasn't thinking tarot immediately, but it looked like at first I thought the person like it was a Houdini type thing. Was it kind of like that where they had to escape? You said that was your wife?
yes, yes.
What it looked like a Houdini type act where but yeah, it was like a hanging man. It was kind of like your life's in balance. And if you don't get to the top of that, your fate's sealed, right?
Yeah, I mean, the choreographer, she doesn't really describe too much about the work, and I think that piece was probably developed back in the '80s. I couldn't tell you offhand, um, but she just picked my wife back then because she had a lot of, and still has a lot of fire in her and a lot of, yeah, I guess fire is a good word. Um, but I don't know. I mean, just that you saw that and you understood that hangman, that's like confirming, okay, there's other things that I've done, other pieces that we've done that there's probably more symbolism and more ritual going on than I previously understood. Because when
I
I was
like
younger,
that.
I was just like, "Oh, this is performing, and this is my job, and I'm so happy that I'm making money doing this." I didn't have the brain to even think, "What is this that we're enacting? What are we doing right now?" And yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I think a few things to that is when I have a lot of personal experiences, and I think of rituals and things of that nature in regards to school. So, like, I had to do drills, earthquake drills, school shooting drills.
hmm,
What other kind of drills? But they also made us do rituals like fold your arms when you walk down the hallway, walk in a single file line, sit
right,
in
right,
rows, raise your hands. If you need to do something, ask for permission. So uh, it's fascinating when you think about rituals like that. That's my kind of experience. But as a performance artist, when you're playing out somebody else's script, you don't really get the insight into the full picture of like what they're trying to create artistically, and that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, like just being a piece on the board rather than the mover, because you are creating an image and a spectacle for people to
mm,
subconsciously and consciously take in. Um, and I this is here's the other thing. When I know what one thing I notice with most art when it comes to high levels, it involves very intellectual people who like to embed symbolism to prove they're intellectual, right? Like that's one thing
mm-hmm,
about
mm-hmm,
smart people. They like to show it off, right? So they're gonna fucking sprinkle as much things as they get. That's why people like Stanley Kubrick, right? Because he's a master
totally.
at symbolism. So I personally like to replicate things like that, and I think
Mm.
everybody likes to embed symbolism in their art, and to not know kind of what you're representing is an interesting thing in being an artist like you. When you just sign up to the performance.
Yeah, yeah, it's, that's a whole other, like, bringing up a lot of interesting ideas right now that, uh, when I was doing that, I was just so excited to be, finally a professional that I I didn't have, like, the symbolic literacy or, anything beyond to, like, really analyze what was happening. I was just like, "Oh, I finally got a job after all these years of training and working and being able to, do whatever on command."
Mhm.
But now, like, I have the breath to look back and I'm like, "Oh, we were doing so much ritual and, uh, yeah, yeah, and the choreographer is very enigmatic, whatever the word is.
An enigmatic
Yeah,
enigma. Yeah.
enigma, yeah.
Um, and I have a few thoughts as well with that. And when you think about the human body as a frequency, as a movement piece, and all these other things, I think of Cirque du Soleil, the Blue Man Group. The
Mhm,
only time I've ever been high, right, where I thought, "Holy shit, this is exactly how I feel when I've smoked weed or whatever," was when I watched the Blue Man Group live in person. I felt
mm,
my whole body change watching this ritual play out in front of me. And it was,
Yeah.
I noticed, I was like, what the hell? Like, cause I was sober, I was with my parents watching the Blue Man Group, and I didn't know like what my body was feeling, but I knew like, oh, this is an interesting thing to take note in me when I watch this performance. And I'm my reasoning was that I've experienced this in church, when you have enough people collectively with the same mind or same focus, it's
Yes.
like a beehive and everybody resonates. And I think I
Yes.
just picked up on the same tone everybody else's mind was, and we were all
Mm-hmm.
synced up, so to speak. And I felt that in like stadiums when I went to football or college games, and the team loses or wins in a pivotal moment, you can feel the whole crowd. You
Yeah.
even if you're not excited or whatever, like you feel it. Like it's unstoppable. This human electricity. And what were you gonna say?
Dude, I was just about to say you get charged from this. It's a charging experience. Like you can feel charge from this whole moment or whatever you're viewing.
Certainly. And it builds you up, it amps you up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
human experiences are the most authentic form of charging yourself, right? And then people try to simulate. One thing I've noticed is people look at psychology and mental psychology, where if you visualize shooting something and then it shows dividends later in life. Well, people like try to get that same type of thing without visualizing by looking at trips on for vacations on YouTube, or they'll look at things they'll never do, like kayaking wild rivers. And I see
Mm-hmm.
some things like that where sometimes people try to sync themselves virtually, and it never amounts to the experience you can get physically, right? Like you can watch a UFC fight by yourself on your screen, but you watch it with a group of people, different feeling, different atmosphere, different
Right.
energy, because you can't help but pick up everything around you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. I like that. So I'm gonna jump around because I had a whole list, but like let's go to this one. So share this tab instead. And can you see the black and white?
I can't see anything right now.
Oh, uh, stop StreamYard. Oh, because I have to do this. Dope. There
Okay.
we go. Circ. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So hit play. Boom.
I think the audio is muted.
Uh, yeah. So I'll let this play for another time, but this isn't crazy. This is some. It says somewhere in Russia military. I'll play it one more time. So on the right, you see there's two people that are on this platform, and they're about to launch the dude on the left teeterboard, the seesaw jammer,
Hmm.
and he gets catapulted probably like 60 feet. I don't know, maybe 50 feet.
Wow.
And if you notice, oh, whoops, there's two people that are holding um the guy up. There's one guy at the bottom that has a rod, and then there's another guy on top of that rod. And I'm just like, speaking of like this collective syncing up, like to have a troop of people and have this collective physical experience is like almost becoming like another entity in itself, and so
Mm.
now it's going back to like you being at church and having this moment and having I don't know how many people are at your church, but yeah.
Yeah, the collective syncing, and when you bring it to something like that, where people are hyper focused in different ways, I think you get something out of it. And I think there's two types of the syncing. And
Hmm.
that type of syncing in that we watched was everybody on the same page intentionally. And then like with Christ or with the Blue Man Group example, it's unintentional seeking. We all got put in the same place and we don't know how, by watching
Okay.
something, collectively participating. And with that syncing, the one I watched, and the fact it was military makes sense, because in everything in the military, especially at the highest levels, it's down to the millisecond, right? When they breach a door, when they go in, and everybody has to know almost what the future holds, but what they wrote down before. So they kind of
Yeah.
make their own future and they sync it up.
Yeah.
They imagine the future beforehand and then they act it out. And I do believe in this mental process of imagining things beforehand and then acting them out later. So that's the kind of syncing I think occurred in that, which when I played in sports or as teams, when you get in the zone or quote unquote, and you're in that, you're playing the same game with all your friends and everything is clicking, whether it's wiffle ball or football or soccer. It's one of the highest highs I think is afforded to humans, because it's a shared collective experience that can't be replicated. You can't get it anywhere else. And I mean, I cherish those moments when I've had those experiences. They were building for me.
Totally. Yeah, it's like, not that I know too much, but flow state, when people
Yeah.
drop into flow state, and then if it's maybe it's one thing when it's just you having your flow state, but then if you have like 10 other people in the
Oh,
same place and you're having that same kind of flow, now is this like a flow that's even rarer to find and to sync up into?
yes, I think absolutely. And that's when you see teams that go undefeated, or a gymnastics or performance artist that scores a perfect score. Well, I guess that's a solo endeavor sometimes, but where else you could see it in like figure skating, you might see it in there are maybe gymnastic events that are collaborative, yes or no, or
They do. They have rhythmic gymnastics where you'll go in pairs and or triplets or sometimes, yeah, triplets. So there's some of that, but I'm even thinking in that case it's like as a team, you each go up on the event one by one, and there's
mm,
something about you're being observed by your teammates while
mhm.
you're doing your routine, because the top 3 usually count. So the top 3 scores in your team are most important. So I mean, everyone's like really focused on you at that, but so that's a little bit different.
And they're giving you their energy, and they're also like I
Right.
think kind of crazy, like they're imagining good things for you typically. And I believe in prayer, and I believe actually in the effects of speaking out loud, thinking, and having an actual impact on the world, because I think the world is a reflection of the words we speak in our minds and out loud. Um, so I,
Yes.
I
Yes.
I think there is lots of ways to get in the sinking state or flow states, and there's got to be, variables, or I guess a spectrum. I like to keep that word to autism, but there is a wide range of possible, I think, ways for people to sink in, and this is, I think, been known for a while. That's why there's the term misery loves company, right?
Mm, mm.
Even if it's negative, people like sinking, which is a fascinating thing as well. It happens at both ends of this of the. It could be a spectrum, or
Yeah,
to
yeah.
anything like that. And I think it's
Oh, yeah.
right.
Um I was gonna say, well, because now I've been thinking about what is it called? A morphic resonance. I just learned this term recently, where a bunch of women, if they're in the same collective area, that their periods will sync up. You
Oh
know, they
yeah,
might be from different places, and then if they're with each other for a prolonged time, that they'll all start to have the same time occurring. Which is, and I'm like, this must be happening with other stuff. Of course, I just can't think of like that kind of bodily starting to reach the same kind of resonance.
yeah, that's interesting. I think you can see the same thing if you put too many men in one room. Like so, like
Mm,
high testosterone, high. There's no escaping that. Like so, that's sometimes it's more aggression comes out at the male end maybe.
right.
But if you have too many men, then I think it turns into immediate hierarchy, and it creates a certain
Yeah,
type of
yeah.
individual. And that's, I think, the military keeps coming up in my mind when I think about that.
Mhm.
Um, because that is what happens. They put a bunch of men, right? And so they have to be sinking like women, but they're sinking
Right,
in different ways. I think
right.
they're probably sinking in measuring, like, whether obviously unconsciously, other males' testosterone,
Totally,
and
yeah, totally.
and saying like, well, there's a lot of high testosterone around me. My body needs to kick it up. And so
Yeah,
maybe you'd
you're
see
right, that
something
that
like
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah, there's no women, high male, and we got to get going. So yeah, I have no experience with boarding schools or things like that, but that might be
Mm,
another place people would be like, are there a lot of sinkings going on in these places where humans are, what's it called, segregated by ages and sex? School's the only thing we have, by the way, where we segregate based on age. Outside of school, we never
yeah,
do that rule, which I think is
right.
interesting. Like, what? Why age?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm I have no idea, but now that I have the little girl, I'm like, maybe for at least the first 5 or 6 years, we're gonna do homeschooling. I'm like,
Yeah,
there's
me
no
too.
way. There's no way, man.
Yeah. And
So
if you do, yeah, I could talk about school. That's one of my hot issues, but let's stay on focus, brother.
yeah, yeah.
What else you got lined up, or any other thoughts you want to toss around on what we've been speaking
I think I'm good on that one. This one, let me share this tab, and then I have to go back to StreamYard and then pull it up like that. Well, there's so many components to this. Okay, Wicked Slams. All right, so I'm gonna play this guy. One more. Boom. Cool.
Wow,
So yeah,
amazingly.
that's pretty. Yeah, pretty
Uh,
cool.
I like that. What are your thoughts on it first?
Um, that the body can be pretty amazing, and that like if you have the desire to accomplish something, that it's very cliche, but like yeah, you could totally do it. Like how is he even whatever, rotating the board around like that with like no real foot to plant and rotate? Yeah,
uh, I had the same thoughts going through my head. It is amazing when you see what people can do with their physical bodies, and you've inspired me with your recent commitment to the 100 push-ups and sit-ups, right?
cool.
And
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
because I've been thinking more and more as I've interacted with your content, and I've been thinking about a lot how, because I have children, and how at this point in my life, the most important thing I have is my physical body. Because if I want to take care of my children in the long term, I have to keep this thing well running. And it's
Totally.
interesting. You can get away with being negligent with your health and for only so long, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
when it catches up to you, it'll be too late, right? You're going to miss out on maybe some really important events in your life. And there's a lot of excuses I make, or people make sometimes, of like why they can't get something done. And then you watch what we just watched, and like, well, what the fuck? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
how do I make any excuse for not improving my quality of life by taking a focus on, improving myself? And uh, that was really cool to see. And then when I see stuff like that, inspires me in different ways. So and it starts with imagination. And some people
Mm-hmm.
niche imagination, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of these believers where before anything I've ever achieved in my life, right, it started with my imagination. I imagined going to college. I imagined applying to graduate school, or a number of things, right? And like after I got done with graduate school, or like when was it? 3/4 the way through, I realized it wasn't for me. I wanted to be a yoga teacher, which is not a good thing to tell everybody after you just invested 2 years in a master's program and you want
Right.
to go get $1,000 certificate. But I started imagining me in a year or two being in a yoga teacher class and teaching yoga, and lo and behold, it happened. But it started within my imagination. Same thing with that young gentleman on the skateboard, right? He imagined him doing that, and then he practiced it, and then he did it, right? So I love that. I think that video is a testament to the power of anybody's imagination and believing in themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Shit, man. You be hitting on so many points, and I'm like, wait, and I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. Like I want to have a notepad. Um but like the last, so I'm gonna stick with the last point that I was like, oh, that's a really good idea, or you're making me think of something, which is that we have the Instagram, YouTube, all these different social medias, and I was talking about this the other day that we're being saturated, bombarded with so much content of like amazing things. Like, in your normal life, you wouldn't come across this guy. Like he's only would be exposed to maybe like a couple hundred people in his life, and they would be inspired and have this whole like transformative idea of like anything's pretty possible, right? So it's like, how is that now kind of popping out, like expanding our imagination more, and like now are we able to think of even more um magnificent things?
I would say so. The other thing is, I think we're actually facing a death in imagination and a death in
Mm,
creativity because of AI. So when we start off sourcing all of our thinking to ChatGPT or Dolly making art for us, instead of like I like Photoshop. I like taking things and cutting things and making things myself. But when we start offloading everything, it might limit our imagination. And I think sometimes with our ability to create, right? Because it's just something else does it for us. But when we see an individual like the one we just watched, I think that does something positive for people in the power of in regards to like their imagination for their own personal possibilities and what they can achieve for themselves. And I'd like that to be true, but um, I feel like when I look at social media, and there's a lot of people who they can encounter positive material, but the reinforcement value of negative material is so much higher. Like they might see a nice clip like that,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna watch 20 minutes of trash, right? So I think the problem is there's too much dilution. But if people can stick to following the principles in their life and committing to following content that builds their life up and is in alignment with who they are, I think only good things would happen. But algorithms and everything on the internet focuses on negativity, unfortunately. And I don't think that there's enough positivity. But
Yeah.
with imagination, to answer your question, yeah, I think it's possible, but I don't know. I have a feeling that a lot of people are lacking. What's it called? Belief in themselves. Like, because we've created a world of constant comparison of, and in
Mhm.
that it makes you think like, well, even though that guy with no legs can skateboard, he can do this, but like they're never left with like, what can I do? They don't have
Right.
an answer to that, right? Like, well, cool, he can skateboard, but I still live in my parents' basement. Um, and I think it's a hard answer because I've dealt with a lot of youth who are just so petulant, so obstinate, so defiant, and saying like, "The world's against me. You think you know everything. Like nothing, and I can't do anything." Oh man, I've had so many conversations with young people who think the
Mm.
world's against them and they can't achieve anything. Um, and it's difficult, right? Because it's their imagination's working, right, perfectly, and it's saying
Mhm.
they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're right because they're telling themselves that. And so it's a weird loop where people get in where they say, I can't do anything, and they choose not to do anything. Well, that's a limit of your imagination.
Right.
And so I think if you look up like public school, are you familiar with the test on children's imagination by the time they get to third grade? So there's a
Oh, yeah, like, it plummets, like, when they're in kindergarten, it is so expansive, and then by the time they get there, they're in a cube.
yeah, they're in a cube. So for example, a test might be like, what can a pencil be? And then if you're in kindergarten, you'd write down like 100 things. A pencil can be a boat. A pencil can be a hat. A pencil can be a shirt. A pencil can be a pen, right? But by the time you're in third grade, you're like a pencil is a pencil,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so uh, I want people to believe that I want to believe that people's imaginations have the potential to expound past them. But when you realize the rigidity of our educational system and limiting people's imagination, that's why you see so many people having a hard time understanding why people can be as evil as they are when they're at the top, or
Yeah.
there are actually bad guys because their imagination's been stunted.
Totally. Yeah, so this idea of loops, and you said like they're stuck in a loop, and then my brain is like, um, the digital off ramp idea that I'm working on, and how can you take people off that loop? If it's just this roundabout, it's like, all right, you have to take an off ramp. You have to get off this in a way. You have to be in your physical body. You have to be with your body in space with other people
I
having those
agree.
experiences, and on top of it you have to start to implement more play. The lack of play
Yes.
is like a big crisis that we're experiencing, where no one knows how to even have this kind of relational experience with another person. So I'm thinking that, and that will then boost their imagination. There's more time to be confident in their imagination, and to build more of a structure, scaffolding framework to then have this space to then push back, because it feels like it's like this blob that is trying to consume us with all this AI and all this digital stuff.
Oh,
So
it, you got me on so many fronts, and I want to respond in a lot of ways. With 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 a lot, I have a, what is it called? It doesn't matter. But when I think about imagination and uh, what people want to do, what they can do, and a digital off ramp, right? People's imagination right now is being ruled by other people. Uh, we are actively participating in the imagination of the person who invented StreamYard. They imagined we would be here, right? And so you got to
mm,
start living your own imagination. And I think
mm,
that you really do got to get off the internet, right? Like you got to get it off the screen. And that's where you and your, that's where the human body thrives, right? We do grow with our mind when we interact with the real world. I think when, unfortunately, people don't like Jordan Peterson, but I remember a podcast I listened to of him, and he was talking about how when we challenge ourselves and we experience new situations, it changes our DNA, right? Like it changes who we are. And if
yeah.
people don't get out of the loop and they don't get off the digital off ramp, right?
Hmm.
Which I love that terminology. They're going to be stuck in, I think, like a negative space, a stagnant space. And I think it's just the imagination thing. I could talk about it forever because I really do believe we're playing out other people's imaginations every time we're on a screen. So if I look at someone's Instagram post, right, they're imagining me like looking at it because they're thinking, oh, when I post this, people are going to like it. People are going to
Yeah.
look at it. And I start playing a part of that. But if you get outside in nature with other people, then I think random occurs, right? And that's where your mind
Yeah.
grows a lot. So I could ramble forever, but you got to cut me off, JFK. But you got to, you're so nice, man. You just got to just cut
I
me
think
off
that's the
anytime.
other part of this. All right, I'm cutting you off right now. I think that's the other part of like what this is that the conversation is another form of uh play, and it's like it seems so much now that the world, people when they talk, it's like I'm just talking so I can get my words across. I want you to hear me. You say something to me and I'm just waiting for, this is common, right? Like
Yep.
I just want to say the
I
next thing. I'm
participate
not
in this
right,
to
right.
your point sometimes. Yeah. Just like I did.
Mhm.
That was an example.
But it's great, right? Because that's what it is too. Because then you start to notice that this is actually genuine, and you get jazzed off of it. It's like, oh, cool. So like, I'm just so stoked that I want to tell you this, and then, but like, you made so many other points, and yeah, it's exciting. And I think we're missing that. I think that's why I'm coming here online, because I'm like, shit, there's not enough of it in my real life. So
Yes. And where people typically go to find conversations in the past, it might be a bar, but like a bar is like not the greatest place in the world to go have a conversation. Where else might people go? Um, you think about that, right? They used to have Rotary clubs. Like in the
okay,
past, if you read Robert Putnam, people were congregating in different ways in the past with all kinds of clubs. And then slowly through technology, we just went to the internet and conversations like the ones we're having, or um, anybody might have it. We do. I think we have fallen in a trap to where it's, yeah, I just want to say what I want to say, and I'll listen to you, but I won't hear you. Um, and
mm,
people, and then that incentivizes loops too, because like to really listen to someone, um, there's a great book. It's called Learning to Listen. My father recommended it to me, and this book changed the way I listen to people forever. Right. And in short, I haven't finished the book, and my dad holds that over my head in some regards because I read halfway through it, and I'm like, I get it. Right. I know how to listen.
yeah,
The book is about working with individuals with disabilities, and how do you listen to someone who has a disability? Because
hmm,
they might talk differently, they might not talk, they might communicate differently. And so
hmm,
to really learn to listen is to say, look, I need to know a lot, like in some sense, a lot about you. Like I need to listen to your past. I need to listen to like everything you are right now. What are all the things that brought you here? That's when you really
yes,
listen to someone, right? If you just listen to the words they say and you don't know how everything got there, you're not hearing what they're saying. There's no context. So the book is Learning to Listen. I recommend it. It is focused on individuals with disabilities, but I think if you take the principles from it and apply it to anybody you meet in your life, it helps so much. Because I've encountered people who I'm like, oh, my initial reaction is to be an asshole to you, but I'm listening louder. I'm listening to you more than you understand. I can maybe see things you don't know I can see. And because of that, I take grace, I take compassion to the conversation, to the listening. And then I don't get offended. I don't take it personal. And then because I
Right.
don't take it personal, I give a appropriate response that might be fruitful. But yeah, to your point where people don't listen, I'm guilty as ever, but it is a real thing. And I'd like to close on this. How do you learn to listen?
Yeah.
I think podcasts are part of this. Watching two people have a conversation, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fumble the dialogue. You know, people do that, but someone will watch that and then grow from it and learn how two people have a conversation and they play the game of handoff and your thoughts, my thoughts.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to. Yeah, I'll just close on that. In a community I watch, they say I yield, so I yield.
I like that. Yeah, I've been hearing that that term being used in the different people's streams. I think that's perfect. And to it's like the first step to make the conversation flow better. It's because we're still in this learning gap of like how do we use this technology and not step on each other's feet, because when you're in the physical space with another person, you can feel a lot more information off of the body language, off of the timing, and you can there's more to it. So I like the yield. I think it's great.
Absolutely. And to that point, that's why if you look at, not to promote my podcast, but if I do podcasts now, I've reformed myself to doing in-person podcasts because
Hmm.
well, I tried this and the reason why I did a podcast with Grimerica. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't, they were muted the whole time. And that ended it for me. I'm like, I'm done with internet podcasts. If someone, the only way I'm doing a podcast is if they come to the studio because I can't fuck that up. And there's no audio lag, audio delay. I'm like, over. And so that's what led me. And I copied Joe Rogan on that because he knew it first, right? Joe Rogan will never do a podcast through a Zoom. He only did it one time, right? Do you know? I
Okay.
won't bring it up,
Mm-mm.
but it was in relation to the events in the past 3 years. And that
Yeah.
was to me, somebody told him, hey, I know you have this rule where people don't come into you. I mean, you only have people come into your studio, but you have to do this podcast with this doctor on
Yeah.
Zoom. But to your point, yeah, conversation's always better in person. But even this is great, especially when there's no lag or disruption, and we can really do the handoff and not yield.
Right on. Right on. Um, I don't want to keep you too long. Do you want to do one more clip?
Oh yeah, well, let's run a full hour because we've been recording for. I'm autistic to the point to where like if you don't have a full hour, but like I
No, no,
like
we can go.
the time slot of
Mm.
a 1 hour recording. To
How
me,
long have we been going for?
47 minutes.
Oh, okay. So we got a little bit of time.
Yeah, we got
Um,
13. And if you want, we can just do a couple more clips and then you could end the show on your own thoughts and kick me out and do a JFK
ooh,
monologue at the end and a
ooh,
breakdown of your thoughts with me. That might be also valuable to your audience.
I like it. That's an interesting. Yeah, no, that sounds kind of cool. I might fox around with that. Um, I had so many ideas. So let me play this one. Can you see the guy holding the kid?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I hit the play, which
Wow,
is pretty,
dude.
pretty cool.
I love that you share this. I got a child about that same age right now.
Oh,
And
perfect.
um, they're pretty strong as far as developmentally. I live in Utah, so I have a lot of friends and family who also have children, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
comparison that you can make or assess. And so far, from my assumption, is my child is pretty strong with the gross motor skills, but not that strong. Holy shit, that was amazing, right? Like I feel like I'm not doing enough right now with my 6 month old kid. Holy, that was unbelievable. And the faith and the trust. I want to two things on this. I think life is led through two avenues, faith and trust. As a teacher,
Mm,
my belief is this: if I ever use fear, I fail. If I use trust, I win. So the way you
mm,
build bonding with anybody, it doesn't even be a student, but it's like you don't fear people into things. It's
right.
all trust. And that baby and his father, the amount of trust between those two is amazing. No fear at all.
Yeah, yeah. Just a backstory on that is that I think that guy is the grandfather, and then the baby is the grandson, and then there's a daughter in between, and they're like a circus family. So it's like, they're on the higher end of like what people would be doing with their kids. Like this is a circus family. They've been doing it for probably, the grandfather's probably had like his father and maybe, so. But I mean, it's like, oh, you could be doing, I could be doing more with my daughter, and so it's just like kids are really durable. That's what I was seeing too. Because
They
when my
are.
daughter was about that age, I didn't feel that confident doing that with her yet. But now she's about to be 2, and so, but now we'll do that kind of stuff, and we'll keep it low. And she's still learning to trust me. She'll hold on to me. But that baby was like, oh no, this is great. We've been here before, and you can swing me down to the ground and swing me back up. I'm like, pretty cool.
That is. And inspiring too. I signed my child up. I have a 3-year-old who does ice skating, and in the summer we're doing gymnastics and
Yeah,
dance. But the ice skating thing's been interesting to experience because uh, the trust, right? I have to trust somebody else with my kid on ice. There's about 50 people on the ice, and all they do is fall. And it's kind of an interesting thing where you take the whole trust thing, and if it's a family like that, or even your family like that, it is built off trust. And it's one of the most beautiful things I think people should have in their life with anybody close to them. I think it's the antidote to a lot of problems is trust in God or trust in your
yeah,
family, whatever you want to
yeah.
trust. If you have something to trust and is a rock beside you, life and a support group is, I think, one of the best things to have. That's why, people should, if they don't have a community or a family, they should try to create one in some regards.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I like that. That's thanks for saying those 2 words, faith and trust. That's nice to have in the back of my mind again because I know those words, but to and then especially not to try and make someone do something through fear. That's like the last thing I would ever want to do to someone. Um, yeah, and the faith thing too. That's like something that's since she was born, I've been having a lot more faith. Like my connection with God is like radical, whereas before
Wow.
I believed in God, but I didn't have any type of like deep connection. But like when I saw the baby be born, it's like, it's like at that point, how could you, if you've had this experience, you cannot but say there is a God or God is and is around us. There is God. Yeah, it's just crazy.
So when you said when you saw the baby be born, I'll just share this in my life, couple children, and seeing the birthing process. I've been told that the first child, I didn't necessarily feel what people report, right? As like some type of high, but the second child, or the second child my wife had, um, when my wife conceived the child, I could feel, they call it a sacrum. Like I could feel something in the top of the back of my neck go all the way down the bottom of my spine when I saw the child come into this
Yeah.
world. And when people don't get this as far as like what it means to be a man or what it means to be male, like there is a genetic change, there is an evolution in your body when you see this occur. I don't like I don't know what to tell people, but you do become a different person. And I think it's just like everything, people always become more of who they are. They maybe not a different person, they become more of who they are, or potentially could be. And to your point, yeah, like that was one of the life-changing moments in my life because I am familiar with like being inebriated or high or whatever. Like I like to change my conscious state so I know
Mhm.
what it means to have a changed conscious state. And you don't need to do drugs to do that at all, people. You can exercise and do a bunch of other things, but
I think there's a
to
place for it though.
yeah, there is, and I think I could ramble about that too. But to realize like my consciousness and everything who I am as a body and mind can change by seeing the act of a child come into the world. That's amazing. And then trust, faith comes in after that. It's kind
Mm,
of like
mm.
it really did. Having children changes your life so much where they trust you and you're responsible for them. And you don't know the future, but they have faith you do.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's this weird, it's a weird thing that happens when you become a father. And I encourage everybody who's ready to take that step to do it. I don't think the world's overpopulated. I think children are a blessing
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
all the way through. So
Yeah. That's awesome. That would be a cool thing at some point to just riff off of, this. I didn't know there's a genetic thing. That makes sense. Like my body, I definitely felt a change. For the first year, I was like really tired because of lack of sleep and stuff. But like, genetically, I'd love to learn more about that at some point. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and one of the things they look to is like oxytocin levels in males change right when you become a father. In other words, you become gentle, and some because you're loving, right? So
Right.
it's amazing to see that change in myself, and man, nothing's better than being a father. It's difficult, right? And every night I go to bed and I think, man, how could I be a better father? Because it's impossible to be perfect in this life. That's why I accept what's the old adage? Finished is better than perfect, right? If you just finish the day,
Yeah.
that's really good, and I think
Yeah.
people should just aim for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so to close on that, I like that finish is better than perfect or never having done it. Is that how it goes?
Finished is better than perfect.
Yeah, yeah, totally, right? Or you get paralyzed by thinking of like this has to be this way, and then you end up never doing it, or you do it, but then it stops and stuff. So to like kind of tie it back in, I hope you can start doing some of the push-ups and the sit-ups. I think that would be pretty sweet. Like, even if you did like 10 of each once a day, like, and then like 10 days later, you're like, what, I'm gonna work up to 20 a day. Like, I think that'd be just starting is like, and you'll finish it at some point.
Absolutely. And one thing, as I usually take things. I can never do a class where people are like, "Oh, sit down and paint what we paint." I have to paint and do things myself. And so when I looked at this challenge, I started rewriting it for myself, right, to make it my own.
Yeah, yeah,
And one thing I don't like is the finish line, because life's never over. Um,
right,
so I'm looking at this challenge and I'm trying to make it uh, part of my life, not an event. So it's to me, I'm looking at it and I like to be rigid with my day. So
mm-hmm.
I've broken it down: 25 push-ups in the morning, 25 push-ups in the afternoon, 25
All right,
push-ups like around 3 to 5, and then 25 push-ups at night. And then if you just set that time aside and you do it every day, I'm thinking to myself, um, the benefit, like I can do 25 push-ups, not maybe right away, but give me 10 minutes, I'll do it. And that's all you need, 10 minutes,
right,
right?
exactly,
10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10
exactly,
minutes. And I looked at it and I said, I could take 40 minutes or out of my day for the rest of my life and not think twice about it. I spend 40 minutes on my phone looking at Instagram. I spend 40 minutes on my phone looking at stuff I like, YouTube streams,
right,
just
right,
chatting away. So that's how I broke it down. And I'd like to take your challenge and say, make it a lifelong thing. And that's kind of where I want to go with it. And I'm starting tomorrow. I'm going to post about it. You'll see it on my
hell yeah,
Instagram.
man.
But if this isn't released tomorrow, you'll see it on my Instagram eventually, in my stories as I track my progress. Because at the end of the day, you do it for yourself, right? And I'm doing it for me because I want to be there for my kids later in life. I think that's the biggest thing I want to realize is to try to do things for myself, for other people.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I could go on, but I don't want to keep you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. So, is there
Absolutely.
anything else that you?
I want to say, no, just subscribe, like JFK Beta, check out his Instagram. Do you have a Twitter?
Mm-mm, no.
No. All right. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment. You allow comments and give us your thoughts. If you disagree, let us know. If I got something wrong, hey, let me know. I'm more than willing to have a conversation about it, and I'm sure JFK Beta is as well. I just appreciate you letting me have a little bit of time here and just have a conversation, which uh, it's one of my favorite things to do in life. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't thank you enough for allowing me the opportunity to have a conversation. So thank you, JFK Beta. God bless everybody listening. And yeah, find more JFK Beta wherever you can.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
I appreciate it. Later, Provo.
God bless, JFK Beta. Have a good night, and I'll see
God
you
bless.
soon.
All right. Whoa. So that's pretty cool. Provo Kid is like teaching me how to kind of like streamline a lot of these little parts of like tying it together to then say like comment, subscribe. That's actually I would anyway. So thanks Provo Kid for that. Awesome conversation. We got through a lot of the content that I wanted to talk about. I'm excited that he's actually going to do the 30-day challenge. And what is so interesting is that he is touching upon something that I was going to, start to build out on, which is that this isn't going to end this challenge. So that's like the what do you call it? The hook to the whole thing. My hook to this is that I set out for a 30-day challenge, but in the end of the 30 days, which is like 9 days from now, I intend on continuing this challenge, and I'm going to continue it for the next 100 not 100 days, for the year. So I intend on doing this all the way until I loop back around to a full year of having done this, 100 of each. And my goal is to make this part of the content, the digital content, linking digital content, digital off ramps to physical content, to being content minded. I think I said that. And then to also meshing together with other people and having their experience, and then feeding both physically into the reality, but and also digitally, so that the two start to kind of find a better harmony. Whereas right now, I'm realizing that there could be more people that are in their bodies, but they're too often online. So that's really cool that he is kind of already intuiting that he, or at least he feels that in his body. So it was a really nice conversation. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I wanted to close off with? Maybe we can do one more video. And I want to keep it in the world of what we were talking about, because I had some other kind of like more kooky stuff. So let me do view tab in StreamYard. And then let me have to go to this. Cool. I'll play this, maybe say a couple ideas about what this is conjuring up for me in my mind. And let me actually, boom, hit that. So I'm out of the picture. So I should be full screen. Hit play. Very cool. So let me pull it back to this. Yeah. I wish I had something really lofty or cool to say, but I think I'll just end it on that. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this conversation. I will soon release more material about the 30-day challenge and how I can hopefully reach out to you. And the really trippy thing is that this will come out and I'm speaking to people in the past. So you're watching this and imagining, like we were just saying, that you're going to be watching this content, and I'm encouraging you to start in whatever capacity you can. I like that word lately. Using your body, finding time for your body, and having reverence for your body. And if it starts off with just 10 push-ups a day and 10 sit-ups a day, I think that's perfect. It's 10 more than you started off with. And through the drip drop theory of it all, something I'm coining, in due time, you'll notice something's changing inside you in a very positive way. Your body is getting stronger. You can do more than you previously could. And then you'll start to find that your thoughts are changing, and you'll be thinking things that you never thought. And through that thought, hopefully you can then create action. And that action will be achieved because you've been working your body. You've been giving reverence for your body. With that, I say beta today, better tomorrow. Thanks again. Peace.
Law firm, right? People's imagination right now is being ruled by other people. We are actively participating in the imagination of the person who invented StreamYard. They imagined we would be here, right? And so you got to start living your own imagination. And I think that you really do got to get off the internet, right? Like you got to get it off the screen. To know almost what the future holds, but what they wrote down before. So they kind of make their own future and they sync it up. They imagine the future beforehand and then they act it out. And I do believe in this mental process of imagining things beforehand and then acting them out later.
Maybe it's one thing when it's just you having your flow state, but then if you have like 10 other people in the same place and you're having that same kind of flow, now is this like a flow that's even rarer to find and to sync up into?
Yeah.